Late one night, a man is speeding down an empty road. A cop sees him go flying past, so he chases him and pulls him over. The cop goes up to the car, and when the man rolls down the window, he asks, "Are you aware of how fast you were going, mister?" The man replies, "Yes, I am. I'm trying to escape a robbery I got involved in." The cop looks at him disbelievingly and asks him, "Were you the one being robbed, mister?" The man casually replies, "Oh no. I was the one who committed the robbery. I was escaping." The cop is shocked and surprised that the man has admitted this so freely. He says, "So you're telling me you were speeding and committed a robbery?" "Oh yes," replies the man calmly. "I have all the loot in the back." The cop is now starting to get angry and says, "Mister, I'm afraid you have to come with me," as he reaches into the window to take the car keys out of the ignition. The man shouts, "Don't do that. I'm afraid that you'll find the gun in my glove compartment." At this, the cop pulls his hand out of the window and says, "Wait here," as he returns to his car and calls for backup. Soon, there are cars, cops, and helicopters everywhere you look. The man is quickly dragged out of his car, handcuffed, and taken towards a cop car. However, just before he is put in the car and taken away, a cop walks up to him and says, "Mister, this officer tells us that you had committed a robbery, had stolen loot in the trunk of your car, and had a loaded gun in your glove compartment. However, we didn't find any of these things in your car." The man replies, "Yeah, and I bet that liar said I was speeding too." A doctor recently had a patient drop in for an unscheduled appointment. "What can I do for you today?" the doctor asked. The aged gentleman replied, "Doctor, you must help me. Every time I make love to my wife, my eyes get all blurry, my legs go weak, and I can hardly catch my breath. Doctor, I'm scared." The doctor, looking at his 86-year-old patient, said, "Mr. Smith, these sensations tend to happen over time, especially to a man of your advanced years. But tell me, how often do you notice these symptoms?" The old man's response was, "Well, 3 times last night and twice again this morning." A middle-aged couple with 2 beautiful daughters decided to try one last time for the son they always wanted. Soon, the wife became pregnant and, 9 months later, delivered a baby boy. The joyful father rushed to the nursery to see his new son, but was horrified to find an incredibly ugly baby. He went to his wife and said, "I cannot possibly be the father of that hideous child. Look at the 2 beautiful daughters I fathered." When his wife blushed, he became suspicious and demanded, "Have you been fooling around on me?" His wife confessed, "Not this time." A man with a very small head walks into a bar, and the bartender asks, "Why is your head so small?" He replies, "I was stuck on this island, and there was nothing but beautiful women there who had never seen a man before, so I had sex with all of them. Their leader, who was the most beautiful of all, had the power to grant anybody one wish, so I asked her to make love with me. She said she would grant me anything but that, so I said, would a little head be out of the question?" An American and a Russian, who had sinned much in their life, both died in a car accident and went to hell at the same time. As they crossed over into the afterlife, they found themselves at the gates of hell. Satan himself greeted them, offering them a choice, American hell or Russian hell. The American was intrigued. "What's the difference?" he asked. Satan smirked. "In American hell, you're free to do whatever you want. We have all the finest amenities here in hell. Whatever your heart desires, you can find it here. But there's a catch. You have to eat a shovel full of manure each morning before you start your day." The Russian was unimpressed. "What about Russian hell?" he asked. Satan shrugged. "It's basically the same, but you have to eat 2 shovels full of manure before you start your day." The American didn't hesitate. "I'll take American hell," he said confidently. But the Russian surprised him by choosing Russian hell. Years passed, and the American settled into his routine in American hell. He played golf every day, hung out with friends at a swanky social club, and dined on delicious food every night. The only downside was the morning ritual of eating manure, but he learned to live with it. One day, he ran into the Russian in the afterlife. "Hey, my friend, how's it going?" he asked. The Russian looked around nervously. "Not so good," he whispered. "This is Russian hell, remember?" The American looked confused. "What's so bad about it?" he asked. The Russian sighed. "Most of the time, there's no shovel, and the rest of the time, there's no manure." So a boy returns home from running an errand for his quarantined grandfather. He says, "Grandpa, I got all the groceries you wanted." Altogether, it came to $47.22. "Here's your change," Grandpa says. "My goodness, the world is expensive nowadays. When I was a boy your age, I could get 5 pounds of potatoes, 3 loaves of bread, 2 pounds of beef, a jug of milk, a tin of tobacco from my dad, and a handful of my favorite candies, all for about 5 cents. The boy asks, "Can't do that today, though. Why is that, Grandpa?" Grandpa replies, "Too many bloody cameras." Mr. Smith owned a small business. He had 2 employees, Sarah and Jack. They were both extremely good employees, always willing to work overtime and chip in where needed. Mr. Smith was looking over his books one day and decided that he wasn't making enough money to warrant 2 employees, and he would have to lay someone off. But both Sarah and Jack were such good workers, he was having trouble finding a fair way to do it. After much thought, he eventually decided that he would watch them work, and the first one to take a break would be the one he would lay off. So he sat in his office and watched them work. Suddenly, Sarah got a terrible headache and needed to take an aspirin. She got the aspirin out of her purse and went to the water cooler to get something to wash it down with. Mr. Smith followed her to the water cooler, tapped her on the shoulder and said, "Sarah, I'm going to have to lay you or jack off." Sarah said, "You'll have to jack off. I have a headache." A woman awakes in the middle of the night to find her husband not in bed. She puts on her robe and goes downstairs to look for him. She finds him sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of hot cocoa in front of him. He appears to be in deep thought, just staring at the wall. She watches as he wipes away a tear from his eye. "What's the matter, dear?" she whispers as she steps into the room. "Why are you down here at this time of night?" The husband looks up from his drink. "It's the 20th anniversary of the day we met." She can't believe he has remembered and starts to tear up. The husband continues, "Do you remember 20 years ago when we started dating? I was 18 and you were only 15, he said solemnly. Once again, the wife is touched to tears, thinking that her husband is so caring and sensitive. "Yes, I do," she replies. The husband pauses. The words were not coming easily. "Do you remember when your father caught us in the back seat of my car?" "Yes, I remember," said the wife, lowering herself into a chair beside him. The husband continued, "Do you remember when he shoved the shotgun in my face and said, 'Either you marry my daughter or you're going to prison'?" "I remember that too," she replied softly. He sighed as he wiped another tear away from his cheek and said, "I would have gotten out today,